I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, March the 30th, and want to wish everybody a happy Easter weekend. Hope you have a good time celebrating that with your family, and we've got the unofficial beginning of spring if you guys haven't really got into your spring yet, but give you a little bit of feed for thought. And you know, I've said before on there, this cattle feeding deal and all your cattle production is all fun and games until feed gets high or scarce. And we saw just a little glimpse of that there late in the week, this past week, and we had our prospective plantings report come out, and it was bullish for grains. We'll talk about that a little more later. I was talking to some guys in the Midwest here, and they're telling me how short everybody is of hay, and it's starting to get kind of serious. And you know, it hasn't been the worst winter by any means up there, not a ton of snow and this and that, but just been cold and dreary, and these cows have gone through a bunch of hay this winter up in the Midwest and all surrounding areas there. And you know, you got guys feeding, you know, corn stalk bales, just anything they can to get some roughage. You know, they inject those things full of syrup and make them palatable, and just anything they can to find some feed. And they're just trying to stretch to get to the grass, and this grass seems like it won't ever come because we never get any sunshine in the Midwest. It's just these kind of wet, damp, cold, dreary days, one after the other. And even though the Royals had opening day at Kauffman Stadium there in Kansas City, still it hasn't turned spring in that area yet. And they're just hoping to start to get to a place where they get some grass growing and turn those cows out and get them off the feed bill. But it's starting to become a concern. And like I say, this cattle feeding deal, we haven't dealt with expensive feed for quite a while. And if we get to that point, that just changes all the dynamics of it. But look at the board there late in the week. On Thursday, your June live cattle was down the limit, $3. Now you tell me what prospective plantings has to do with June fat cattle. And I'd love to hear the explanation. But $3, you know, they got a little bit of corn to eat yet, but that's pretty soon. 102.57. Your April was down 2 1/4, 113.75. Your August, go way out there, it was down 2.97 at 101.47. You think it's going to be hard to get this market to stay above $1, and it could very well happen that way. We know we've got a lot of cattle to sell. Look at feeder cattle. Yeah, now we knew they were going to take the brunt, and they sure did. May feeder cattle contracts down 447 to end the day at 134.02. April down the $4.50 limit at 133.32. We haven't seen limit moves because they're expanded there on your feeder cattle for quite a while, but sure did on Thursday. March down 37 cents at 135.60. So board will be closed on Good Friday, and I'm sure glad of that. We won't lose any more ground, and we'll see what happens next week. Your fat cattle trade continued to have more trade on Thursday, but through Wednesday they had sold 53,000 head in the 5-area feeding region, mostly at 121, and on your dress sales from 190 to 193. Well, we come in on Thursday and we saw more of the Northern Plains sale, and mostly 122 live in the Northern Plains, and that was before the board completely cratered. It was early in the day, and it was a good thing. Who'd have thought we'd have felt lucky to get 122, but that's what they did. That's $4 to $5 lower on a live basis, and did have some dress trade in Iowa and places at 194, but also if you looked at the reports, we had quite a bit more of that 190. So that 190 to 194 is straight up $10 lower than the previous week on your dressed fats. Your actual steer weights are coming down, and they're coming down pretty fast. Of course, the little thing like that's sure not going to help your market much, and Nobody paid any attention to it, but come out there on Thursday. For the week ending March the 17th, your dressed steer weight's 877 pounds, down another 4 pounds, and we start getting into some of these calf feds, and they're going to continue to drop, but everybody's got that figured into the market, so it's probably not going to help a whole lot. But we had a bullish prospective plantings report despite record corn stockpiles. We've got a lot of that stuff sitting around as far as those reports go, sitting in storage, and but still your estimated corn plantings, they're thinking that they're going to plant 88 million acres, which sounds like a lot, but that was down compared to last year. Was over 90 million, 90.2 almost, and it was that 88 million was quite a bit less than what they had expected. So it was sure bullish for corn, not for cattle, but bullish for corn. Your corn prospective plantings, the acres were down 2%, your beans were down 1%, your wheat up 3%, and cotton, what they're expecting for this next time, was up 7%. And I tell you what, especially down here in the Southwest, they are growing cotton where you never thought they'd ever grow cotton before, but that's what they think they can make a living on. But you look at your Omaha cash corn, at the end of the day, Thursday was up 15 cents. That's a big roll, and still only $3.65 to $3.66 a bushel, but that's about as cheap as it gets. You start going anywhere from there, and then you start talking about freight and lower supplies, and it gets quite a bit higher, especially when you get down into your southern feedlot areas. But cash beans in the Midwest were up about 30 cents, close to $10 a bushel, one way or the other, but pretty close in there, and that still seems relatively cheap, but it's starting to work higher, and that is something that puts fear in guys that feed cattle. But look at your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on Beef Market Central there, based on an 800-pound steer, was down a dime at 134.77 compared to late Wednesday. You look at some big Thursday auctions, Salina, Kansas had over 4,000 head there. You look at the automated market report on Cattle Market Central there, because the only thing that was available, around steady to $6 lower on your big feeder steers. You look at a popular weight there were 726 head of 8-weight steers in Salina. They averaged 852 pounds at 127.25. And that was about $2 lower than the weighted average on the same sale last week. Pratt, Kansas had a lighter run, 2,500 head, and there's just no cattle coming off wheat. Those cattle would have starved to death a long time ago if they'd kept them on the wheat. But light run there in Pratt, 2,500. Feeder steers there, $2 to $4 higher. You look at some load lot quotes out of Ogallala, Nebraska. I told you that we just recently got Ogallala on to reporting to Cattle Market Central, and look how come we wanted them. Look at all these load lots on there, and a bunch of load lots of cattle that weighed from 8 1/4 to 917, and they bring from 125.5 to 138.50. But that's a good test up there in western Nebraska. You look at an individual quote in Clarinda, Iowa. There, my friend John Anderson and Frank Hepker and everybody else working around the Clarinda livestock there. So 57 head of steers, weighed 830 pounds at 143.10. That's your feeder flash for Friday.